Hello and welcome to day 2 of this very special event, The Sacred Wound as a Portal to Your Awakening, where you will learn from incredible teachers, psychologists, academics, spiritual mentors, astrologers, mystics, mediums, shamans, and healers with a world of knowledge, gifts, and talents ready to share with you. First of all, I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands we are meeting on today, and thank them for their continued custodianship of the many lands, seas and waters that we all have between us. I would also like to acknowledge our elders, past, present and emerging, and thank them for their guidance and wisdom they continuously provide for us. Thank you. Today's session, we are talking to a very special guest who I am honoured to be hosting, the award-winning author of Wounds to Wisdom, Rabbi Dr. Tirzah Firestone. Dr. Firestone is an author, Jungian psychotherapist, leader in the international Jewish renewal movement, and a renowned Jewish scholar and teacher. She is widely known for her groundbreaking work on the Kabbalah, depth psychology, intergenerational trauma healing, and the reintegration of the feminine wisdom tradition within Judaism. Rabbi Tirzah lectures and teaches nationally about spiritual and ancient wisdom practices that are honed to assist us at this critical time in world history. Her latest work, Wounds into Wisdom, Healing Intergenerational Jewish Trauma, is the recipient of the 2020 Nautilus Book Award, Gold in Psychology, and the Jewish Women's Caucus of the Association for Women in Psychology 2020 Book Award. So please welcome the fabulous Rabbi Dr. Tirzah Firestone for today's topic, Healing Ancestral Wounds as Sacred Purpose. Hi.
Hi, Charlie. Thank you so much. I'm very grateful for this invitation.
Oh, I'm so honored for you to
Powerful
attend.
topic.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Thank you so much for making time. I'm really going to hand it over to you because I know that you've got a great presentation. So,
okay. Welcome, everybody. I'm so glad you're listening in. This is truly powerful work. It's alchemical work, the alchemical work of transforming, metamorphosing our wounds into wisdom and our obstacles into doorways of awareness and action. Today, I would like to bring to the conference and to you another view. I know that there are many views that are being presented. This view is a grand view. It's a soul's perspective that the work of ancestral healing provides that may be helpful for you as you navigate the darkness in the world currently, the wounds that you carry. So begin, if you would, by picturing the view that you get from an airplane window. You've launched, you've hit your cruising altitude of 30,000 feet, and you can see the landscape below. And you can see with your own eyes that there is a big, big pattern of terrain, of topography. And if we were to look at our own lives from that view, we would see that we, individuals, as important as each and every one of us are, we are connected to a much bigger pattern. We're connected to our ancestors and lineages from whom we came behind us. And we could also see that there is a vast future, God willing, of our progeny, our students, our loved ones that are yet to come to Earth. And we could see all the influences that still our ancestors still have upon us and will continue to have upon us and our progeny. So from this distance, looking out of that window, we can begin to see ourselves as part of this vast river. It's a river of love, of wisdom, of resilience, and also, and I say resilience because we wouldn't be here unless our ancestors really had something. They kept themselves in the game of life. So they pass those qualities on to us, but also they pass on the unconscious historical patterns to us from generations through the generations, still reverberating these influences that some of which we do not want are still reverberating in us and today we're going to take a look at what we can do about them. So if you would join me, I always like to begin with an invocation to connect to the greater powers. So please join me if you would, however you do, as I call upon the spirit of the land beneath us, the profound intelligence in the home that we abide in, this Mother Earth, and the ancestors who lived before us on this earth, who carved pathways of light and wisdom and guidance before us, that we are still, whether we know it or not, wittingly or not, we are reaping the sustenance from their precursory lives. I pray that the insights and healing work here and throughout this conference will bless this earth and all of her creatures. And let's go on just a little bit with the light open and streaming now. Please, let's each of us ask that the wise and well ancestors and guides of our respective families and lineages be present with us now to assist and bless this healing work, to open channels of wisdom and healing for ourselves, for our lives, and for those of our families. And may every one of us who are hearing these words be assisted and uplifted and connected to one another and protected. The truth of their being be amplified and dignified. May we each be energized and galvanized to go farther on our paths, our path of healing and illumination. And if you subscribe to those words, please say aho, amen, amin, whatever you say, and we'll move on. Thank you. So each one of us has a story that led us to this day, to this conference, and to embracing this rather dark moment of and the healing that we need, each of us. So let me tell you a bit about my story. My mother escaped Nazi Germany in 1939 as a teenager. She never told me or my siblings about the scores of cousins, uncles, and aunts that were murdered in Nazi Europe. Another secret was that of my father, who was a US kid, an American kid from Brooklyn, who landed in World War II. He signed up. He was sent to Germany, ironically, to work in a bomb detection brigade, and he landed up in a concentration camp where the British were just liberating that death camp. Now, my father took many pictures. He was a puppy. He was 22. What did he know? He took a lot of pictures and he filed them away in the back of a metal filing cabinet, never to be seen until after his death, when me and my siblings opened those drawers and saw these pictures is what landed inside of him, emblazoned in his memory, these overwhelming photographs of death and destruction. Now, these secrets were no secrets at all, not my mother's nor my father's. They came out in my mother's milk, in my father's temper, in their politics, in their rigid grip. And, trauma psychology teaches that family secrets have an even greater force on children's lives than open telling, because they have all the power of sequestering, and they leak out in odd ways. So as my quest took me far away from them, to escape from their neuroses and their patterns as a young person, to heal from them, I inadvertently came full circle, of course, to study psychology and to study, in particular, trauma psychology and intergenerational trauma psychology. And as I was studying, of course, I started to connect the dots, and I realized, well, I was raised by trauma survivors. What I grew up with were the classic hallmarks of trauma residue, which we'll get to in just a little bit. while my study and my research was anchored in Jewish culture, I'm also a rabbi. All of these are found in my book, Wounds into Wisdom. It became clear in the years after my book came out, which were basically the 3 years of COVID, that there was a virtual explosion of interest in intergenerational or ancestral, same thing, healing around the world. And my students came in from Hong Kong and Shanghai and Iran and Tokyo and Israel and Palestine. And it was just astonishing. This was not a Jewish issue at all. This is a global, worldwide topic. And perhaps you feel this too, that there's a draw of interest. And how I put it is that every ethnicity and every lineage is and must be taking on this work. There is a beautiful idea in the teachings of Carl Jung that we have an irresistible compulsion and an urge to do the healing work, to do the work of wholeness, to become who we are meant to become. And that is, it's like a draw, a magnetism to get bigger, to have more insight, more awareness, especially now. I want to say, my friends, especially now when there is so much intensity in the collective world. It's like there's a centrifugal force, social media and news and all the busyness and the breaking news alerts, all pulling us out of our center. But it's really, what better advertisement could there be to create an interior landscape for ourselves to do this healing work? We can't really do it out there when our nervous systems are activated, when we're dysregulated by so much trauma in the collective field. We need each of us to create intentional space, sacred time, to carve out that inner landscape. However we do that, I have a journal next to my bed so that insights and dreams that happen for me, I can write them down. I have a meditation altar, an ancestral altar in my home. Practices of self-care, exercise, good sleep, really, really important that we have techniques of self-calming, because the healing work requires that we are regulated and that we are calm, so that that steadiness can help us heal better and feel better, and then we can do remarkable feats. So with that, let me just let's take a moment right now. I was so excited to join everybody. Let's take a moment right now and do a very, very brief exercise that you can take with you, I hope, if you like it. I do this when I feel the traffic of the world and the traffic of my day is just getting me buzzing. And just sitting vertically, if you would right now, let's try it. Sitting vertically, in other words, just upright. You can do this lying down. It's a little more difficult. You can close or soften your eyes and bring your attention to your low back, your sacrum, your tailbone area. Now, as you inhale, I'd like you to raise the breath energy up your spine, all the way up, as if it's a little elevator shaft traveling up to the crown of your head. And as you do that, you're raising the breath energy up to here with your intention. Hold for a brief second. And now exhale, imagining a beautiful cascade, 180 degrees, 360 degrees, a dome of fresh, warm, beautiful, clean water cascading down on your exhalation, cleansing you and purifying your field in a beautiful oval shape or a round shape. Let's try that. Inhaling up your spine, all the way to your crown. Hold 1, 2, 3, and exhale, if you can, out your mouth, letting that cascade, that waterfall of fresh energy go down in front of you. You're tall and aligned, breathing up Imagining that beautiful Hawaiian waterfall falling, cascading around you, taking with it the stress, the tension, the technical energy that you used just getting online, all of that, feeling your hands, your arms, everything cleansed, your front of your body, all the way down, down, down to your toes. Beautiful. One more time in your own pace. Exhaling out your mouth, the cascade reaches all the way to your toes, taking with it all the staticky, tense buildup of life's tensions. So, in answer to the call of this conference, I would say that when it comes to our wounds and injuries, to our health issues, be they medical or emotional, to the depression that we might carry, the anxiety, the shame, the feelings of not belonging, feelings of anger, feelings of fear that we're harboring, often these did not begin with us. Often these maladies that we have, that we carry for years, maybe since childhood, they have a precursor in our families that came before us. They have a precursor, they have roots in family issues. They have to do with that bigger picture that we saw, that landscape that we saw, ancestral landscape that we saw from the airplane, the imaginal airplane window. Now, when I ask my clients and students to draw a multi-generational family tree, which is called a genogram, and they go back, it is so often that people will tell me my eating disorders, my sleep difficulties, my insomnia, my diabetes, my weight issues, my money issues, my infidelity issues. I found them in this generation. I found them over here. I found them over here. They were already there before I ever came. I'll tell you a little story now. This is from a client who came from Iran. I tell it in my book, Wounds into Wisdom. Esty was a 30-something young mom who had a daughter, a 7-year-old, who could not leave her sight. She had a severe separation anxiety disorder, and she couldn't go to school. She couldn't leave her friends. She couldn't have friends because she couldn't leave her parents. And Esty and her husband tried everything, every counselor and every school therapist. Nothing was working. This kid was really beside herself. And Esty came to me just for some self-care. And as I asked her to chart her family tree on a big block of paper, she did. And she told the story of how her parents escaped Tehran in 1981 on a donkey cart, sitting on opium bundles, having in the middle of the night, paying a donkey driver to cross the border and let them off in Pakistan, how they had to pay people there and get to a plane in Karachi, a whole elaborate tale about how they left behind an elaborate life with beautiful opulent home with nothing but a little shopping bag of toiletries. Now, Esty was in her mom's womb at the time. Her mom was pregnant with her as they escaped Iran and the Revolutionary Guard, which was so dangerous in those years. And she told me very proudly about this story, how they made it out. I said, well, that's great. That's a beautiful family tale, but what about this other side of your family? And she said, I don't know anything about them. I said, go home and check it out. So she went home, and that night she called me and she was crying. And she said, I seem to have unearthed a horrible thing. I need to see you. I'm going to bring my mother in. And what had happened was that by scratching the surface, Esty unearthed a family secret. And the secret was that her parents had left behind her father's mother at 94, a blind woman who had assisted in an assisted living situation, who They didn't want to say goodbye because they didn't want to trip the alarms that somebody might tell and they would be arrested on the way out of town. So they left town without ever saying goodbye. And this old woman who was used to seeing them every day and was expecting her first grandchild died of a broken heart and of huge separation trauma. As this all came to light and there was this huge ruckus, and Esty insisted that they pull out all the pictures and that they do a memorial and all of this, and her parents grieved, and all of this stuff down for 30 years, that secret coming out had a magical kismet quality of healing to it. In another part of the house, there was this little 7-year-old who started to kick the walls and say, I don't want to be here. You're all crazy. She didn't really know what was going on. Let me go back to school. Within 3 weeks, this kid was back in school, was having play dates. Something lifted by doing this, releasing the secret in this part of the family, this little kid. It was as if she was acting out the separation wound of a grandmother she had never met thousands of miles away. So I leave you with that little tale to say that our families are deeply connected, even when we don't know who came before us. Zooming out to the collective story of the world, so much of what we are seeing right now is really the unprocessed result of centuries of old pain, deferred grief, deferred tragedy from injustices that were never dealt with, and tragedies that were never truly healed from or grieved. The traumas, think about that for a moment, of horrible discrimination that went unmetabolized and just stored under our skin, you might say, in the cellular memory of humanity. I'm thinking here about the crushing of indigenous cultures in North America, children stolen, families broken apart, cultures debased. That's just one example. We have people with black skin, people of color who were kidnapped and trafficked, taken into slavery, sold like animals. We have women, the whole entire gender under the horror of patriarchal abuses, burned as witches and debased and devalued. So many things now in the 21st century it's like the bill is coming due. All of that has been stuffed under is coming out now because we simply know too much. With the science of a trauma science and neuroscience and the epigenetic science, it's impossible to say anymore that the residues of our ancestors' traumas just will evaporate. They don't evaporate. They stay in the air and they transmit themselves to us, to each one of us listening to this talk right now. Our trauma residues persist and they land in us in strange ways, often to the most sensitive members of the next generation, which may happen to be you. And they affect our health, they dampen our joy and our appetite for life. And not only our own, but they continue to pass down in future generations. I talk about it as the trauma train, and each of us need to stop that trauma train in our family. So what does trauma really mean? It's a word that is bantered about a lot these days. My colleague and teacher, Dr. Gabor Mate, says there is trauma with a little t and trauma with a big T. The word trauma itself means wound. It's Greek for wound, but it's the kind of wound that is so intense that our central nervous system can't metabolize it, can't cope. We get overwhelmed and we can't integrate what's happening in the moment. And so we push it over here and we store it for later. Dr. Mate says that trauma is not what happens to us on the outside of us. It's what happens to us on the inside of us as a result of what happened to us in the world outside. Now, what I have seen teaching these past years, teaching ancestral healing, is that our personal healing, when each of us does a piece of personal work, when we untie the knots that lodge inside of us, we are releasing the knots from our families too. There is benefit for others as we do our work and we connect our dots and feel the feelings and grieve the losses, just like Esty and her family did. We affect the bigger picture. There is like a ripple action that happens. The morphogenic field of the family is shifted, whether or not we already have children and grandchildren, whether or not we have any, and we're even in touch with them. There are energetic ripples that of healing that really travel through time and space, backwards and forwards, and release healing energy for others in our bloodlines. So whether you're an individual who has suffered, God forbid, an accident or a sexual violation or sudden death or sudden loss, or we're talking about collective trauma, the ethnic traumas and discrimination that happen for an entire people, there are 4 hallmarks that I talk about in my book, Wounds into Wisdom, that are important to know. And they're the same hallmarks. They apply to individuals as they do to entire peoples. And it's important that we know them so that we can identify them both in ourselves and in others. First, I talk about the emotional numbness that happens when we kind of bury and sort of distance ourselves from our pain. It's often a trauma residue, probably the biggest one. And you can tell when somebody is in what we call dissociation, when they have dissociated from their pain because there's a numb quality about them. And it's not just the pain that gets numbed, it's also their life force that gets numbed. There's also another hallmark that's called hyperarousal or hyperreactivity, which is like going from 0 to 10 with, you just go ballistic. I saw that happen just the other day. A guy was riding his bike and a dog chased him, and it was a 3-legged dog. Actually, the dog couldn't have hurt him, but he went ballistic. It was inordinate. There's a quality of, it's out of proportion, the kind of rage that will erupt, and the hyperreactivity. Another one is shame, a sense of shame that I'm bad, that I did this, I caused this, I brought it upon myself. And there's also one that's very quizzical, and that is the unconscious tendency to reenact injury, to reenact our injuries on ourselves or on others. Now, I can talk for a long time. I hope you'll just read it in my book or pick up another piece of literature and familiarize yourself. Maybe as I said those 4, you will recognize one or more of them in yourself or in your family. Once I started personally to connect the dots in myself and bring awareness to bear, I could start to heal and help others. And I hope that that's the case for you. As you hear what we're talking about today, you'll start to go, oh yeah, I get that. And one more thing I want to say, and then we'll go into a personal experiential practice. What all the great traumatologists around the world are teaching right now is that there is one factor that is key in our healing of trauma. And everyone agrees on this, and that not only healing trauma, but healing trauma transmission to others, that we pass it down, that trauma train. And that healing key is awareness. Once we come into the front of our brain, the cortical brain, the neofrontal cortex, where we can say, aha, and we get the ahas and we connect the dots and we have insight and we have sense of like, yes, I'm understanding something, then we bring the light of awareness to our situation, and that begins the change. Professor Dr. Yael Danieli, one of the great collective traumatologists, says this: awareness of transmitted intergenerational trauma processes inhibits transmission of pathology to succeeding generations. Awareness of transmitted intergenerational trauma processes will inhibit transmission of pathology to succeeding generations. So that's very, very hopeful. It's really important. And yes, okay. So let's go back to take a few breaths and relax. Now, with all that, you may be buzzing right now. I'm buzzing with all this wonderful information and hopeful information. And but I want us now to sit back and calm our nervous systems, because I'm going to lead you in a very brief but important guided meditation. So sit back, please. Feel your back body. Let yourself melt into the seat behind you. If you would, let your pelvic floor drop open, your belly be soft. You can do a waterfall breath, bringing the breath up to your crown. Hold it for a second. Let it cascade down. And would you bring your attention now into your hands? Whatever shape they're in, wherever they're resting, let them truly rest. Our hands do so much for us every day. Just let them rest and bring your attention and maybe your appreciation into your hands, but let them get heavy. Each finger heavy. Breathing and relaxing. I want you to let your hands get so relaxed that you can actually feel a little pulse in each one of your fingers, as if you could feel a little drum beat right now in all of your fingers. Beautiful, beautiful. And let that continue. Let your hands continue to get heavy, and let that heaviness travel all through your arms, heaviness in your shoulders and the back of your neck, your face. As you continue to relax, your mind stays crisp and clear. I want you to join me now in front of a big door. And each of our doors will be different. Some will be small, some will be a huge gate. What does yours look like today? What color is it? And what's it made of? Is it quaint? Is it colorful? Is it enormous? This is the door, my friends, to a very living, alive, and vivacious abode, a zone, a realm beyond our sight. We see it with our inner sight. In this, beyond this door, is the ancestral realm. In just a moment, we're going to knock or ring on our door, ring if there's a bell there or a knocker, or just with our hand, we will knock to let our ancestors know that we are coming. To let your ancestors know that you are coming, whether your ancestors were crazy and neurotic, or whether they were criminals or malevolent, whether they were neglectful or you got disconnected from them, they gave you up for adoption. It doesn't matter, because each and every one of us has at least a few wise and well, truly well and loving, beneficent ancestors. We may know them, we may not know them. You may know their names, you may not even know that they existed. And today, right now, we're going to knock on that door 3 times or ring 3 times, and then push open that door, taking 3 steps across the threshold. I would like you now to invite in just one, well and supportive being from your lineage. Now, this may be a biological relative, but it could also be what we call ancestors, not necessarily a blood ancestor. It could be a teacher, a heroic figure whom you emulate, someone you feel connected to from history, from the Bible, from someone you've heard about. It could be your namesake. And it could be your grandparent or your parent or your sister or a friend who has died before you. These are people who have already gone from this earth. And you are in the business right now of calling just one wise and well, supportive and loving being from the hallways, as we say, the ancestral hallways, from their abode, calling them into presence to stand before you now and feel that person when they come. If they haven't come yet, don't worry. You might need to scan who, and call, but please trust that someone is there. Someone will come if you call with a sincere heart. If 2 beings come, that's also okay. Someone who's interested in this work that you're doing, someone who feels a kinship with you, let them stand before you now and just beam their energy to you and feel them seeing you and appreciating you and blessing you. Just blessing you with their presence, with their eyes. You are breathing, you are grounded. If you're still inviting in, take your time until you find that teacher, until you find that. You'll know because there'll be a felt sense. This is the person who is still there for me, even though they're long gone. They may be newly gone. Feel their loving presence. Now, I'd like you to put forth any question or concern that you are presently carrying. Maybe it's a concern that brought you to this conference. Put it forth now. Put it forth as if floating it between you and them. And then pause. Just relax. Do you have any wisdom for me, any counsel for me about this concern about my wound? Can you help me? Feel and sense that while their answer may not come in words, or it may, but it may just be a feeling, just a felt sense. Absorb that, receive it, trust it. Allow yourself to be surprised by who came and what they have to offer you today. With your next breath, take a bow, give a gesture of honor, of thanks, of gratitude, and allow your ancestor, your loving, wise, and well supportive being, recede back to their hallway, back to their abode as you begin to take 3 steps back, back, back across the threshold of that ancestral door. And with your next breath, please close the door in front of you. Please wiggle your toes, wiggle your fingers and hands, feel your extremities, and rub your hands together to create a little bit of warmth. Don't be bashful, be energetic with it, and place that warmth someplace that would feel really good to you now on your own body. I encourage you to write down anything that you saw or experienced or heard in your journal on a piece of paper, because it will evaporate. And now I'm just going to close by saying this. Healing our wounds is at the core of the awakening that we're all needing to do on the planet today, as we move from me to we, as we move from our small view to the big view, and know how interconnected we are. Know that we have help. You have help. You have ancestors and teachers and allies and guides and elders on the other side, that if you merely ask, if you merely reach out and just say, help, please, I am stuck, I need help, I need the grace of assistance from the other side, I promise you, you will receive some help. It has never failed in my life, in any of my students' life, if you ask with a sincere, earnest heart. When we turn to face our histories, whatever family or ethnicity we hail from, we can shift the health and the joy, our personal dignity, our personal stamina and resilience, and we can really heal ourselves, and not only heal ourselves, but those around us, our families, our lineages, and the larger world. And thank you so, so much for your attention and for coming along with me for this big view. And may this conference be gloriously healing for you.